I caught my wife with my supervisor. I recorded them and left. Her tearful confession next morning exposed deeper betrayals. I never imagined some individuals destroy their futures without ever comprehending the how or why of their downfall. My wife Alexandra falls into that category. Greetings to all of you joining me today. I'm Daniel, and if you've ever had your trust completely shattered by someone dear to you, this account may resonate deeply. I believed Alexandra, my wife of 7 years, was my greatest ally. I couldn't have been more mistaken. This is the narrative of how I uncovered my wife's affair with my director, and the instant I witnessed it firsthand, I realized everything in my life had irrevocably changed. Throughout my 36 years, I've maintained the conviction that dedication eventually yields results, that investing time, energy, and personal sacrifice ultimately brings rewards. I served as a senior architect at Westridge Design Group, one of the most distinguished architectural firms in Seattle. While many of my colleagues departed promptly at the end of business hours, I remained, ensuring every blueprint was precise, every design proposal impeccable, and every client presentation strategically crafted. I wasn't merely fulfilling obligations, I was cultivating my professional future. After years of dedication, my persistence appeared poised to bear fruit. The firm would soon host its prestigious annual Westridge Excellence Awards, a sophisticated, exclusive ceremony where the company's achievements and outstanding contributors received recognition. Career advancements weren't announced through impersonal digital communication. They were proclaimed before hundreds of industry professionals, partners, and fellow architects. Being acknowledged at this gathering signified that your creative vision and technical expertise had made a significant impact, that your professional trajectory was accelerating. My name circulated prominently among candidates being considered for the coveted position of design director. This opportunity transcended a mere title upgrade. It represented substantially increased compensation, creative authority over major projects, and the ability to guide the firm's aesthetic direction. That evening should have marked a celebration not solely for me, but for us as a couple. If certainty existed anywhere in my life, it manifested in Alexandra, my partner, my confidant, my unwavering supporter. We'd shared our lives for nearly a decade, and throughout every professional challenge and personal hurdle, she wasn't merely my spouse, but my foundation. She instilled confidence in me during periods of self-doubt. Her loyalty remained unquestioned. I'd never encountered reasons for suspicion. At least that represented my understanding at the time. The anticipation surrounding the Excellence Awards ceremony had built for weeks. The venue, Cascade View Gallery overlooking Elliott Bay, reflected the prestige associated with Westridge Design Group. I experienced both pride and gratitude, not exclusively regarding my professional advancement, but particularly concerning the woman standing beside me. Alexandra looked absolutely captivating that evening. At 34, she had always possessed natural elegance, but that night she carried herself with a refined poise that commanded attention immediately upon our arrival. Her midnight blue gown accentuated her graceful figure, complementing her blonde hair styled in sophisticated waves that framed her face perfectly. I introduced her to colleagues, mentors, and industry contacts. As always, she navigated social interactions with apparent effortlessness. She engaged intelligently, listened attentively, and contributed meaningfully to conversations, completely comfortable amidst celebrated architects and influential design professionals. Even several senior partners who typically maintained professional distance from most staff members appeared drawn to her articulate charm and insightful observations. I watched these interactions unfold with quiet admiration. This remarkable woman represented my wife, my partner, the individual with whom I'd constructed my entire existence, and in those moments, I felt profoundly privileged to share my life with her. As the evening progressed, however, I began noticing subtle shifts in Alexandra's behavior. She seemed increasingly drawn toward Vincent Hargrove, my immediate superior and the firm's current design director. Vincent wielded significant influence within Westridge. He determined project assignments, budget allocations, and ultimately, career trajectories. He decided which architects received leadership roles on landmark projects and which remained confined to supporting capacities. Initially, I dismissed their interactions as harmless professional networking. I reassured myself that Alexandra simply engaged in polite conversation with someone important to my career advancement. But some internal alarm suggested otherwise. At one moment, Vincent leaned close, murmuring something inaudible from my position, and Alexandra responded with laughter that struck me as unusually intimate. Suddenly, I felt like an observer rather than a participant, witnessing something unfolding beyond my comprehension. For the first time that evening, uneasiness settled over me. Several hours into the ceremony, Alexandra approached, discreetly placing her hand on my arm. "I need to take this call," she explained, briefly displaying her illuminated phone. I noticed the screen showed only numbers, no saved contact name. I acknowledged with a nod. "Of course, I'll be mingling by the exhibition display." She offered a brief smile, squeezed my arm gently, and departed, disappearing into the gathering of elegantly attired guests and staff circulating with champagne trays. Initially, I thought nothing of her absence, remaining engaged in conversations about sustainable design principles and emerging architectural technologies. But 20 minutes passed without her return, prompting me to scan the room casually. Another 5 minutes elapsed. I checked my phone, no messages explaining her extended absence. I reasoned she might have stepped onto the terrace where reception improved, or perhaps the call involved complicated matters requiring lengthy discussion. I attempted to refocus on nearby conversations, trying to suppress the growing discomfort. 5 additional minutes passed. 30 minutes had now elapsed since she excused herself. My ability to concentrate on professional discussions had completely evaporated. I felt someone touch my elbow, interrupting my thoughts. It was Marcus, a colleague from the Urban Development Department. While not close friends, we had collaborated on several municipal projects and maintained respectful professional relations. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice for privacy. "You're showing remarkable restraint. If my wife demonstrated such attentiveness toward my boss, I'd be asking serious questions." I forced a laugh, attempting to diminish his observation. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Marcus took a deliberate sip of his drink and shrugged. "Come on, Daniel. Everyone's noticed. She's been practically orbiting around Hargrove all evening. The laughter, the arm touches, the meaningful glances." I offered no response beyond a tight smile, suggesting Alexandra was simply being sociable. But by this point, the vague discomfort had transformed into concrete suspicion. I checked my watch. 35 minutes had now passed since she left for her supposed call. I methodically surveyed each section of the gallery, searching for her familiar figure among the assembled architects and executives. Nothing near the bar, nothing on the terrace where guests occasionally stepped out for fresh air. Then realization struck with terrible clarity. I hadn't seen Vincent Hargrove for some time either. An icy sensation spread through my chest as my mind involuntarily connected points I desperately wished remained separate. My heartbeat accelerated as I moved through the venue, my pace quickening with each step. The conversations around me faded to indistinguishable background noise as I followed an instinct I prayed would prove mistaken. As I turned down a quieter corridor beyond the main gallery space, I passed several exhibition rooms and then the restrooms. That's when I detected faint sounds, barely audible through the thick doors. I slowed my approach, straining to hear, my mind already racing toward conclusions I didn't want to accept. Then I heard something unmistakable, a muffled sound of pleasure. I moved forward deliberately, stopping just outside the private restroom door. My heart pounded violently as I forced myself to speak. "Alexandra?" Complete silence followed. I swallowed hard, my voice firmer now. "Alexandra, I know you're in there." Still nothing. Then came rustling sounds, the unmistakable noises people make when discovered during forbidden activities. That silence, that hesitation, communicated everything I needed to know. My patience vanished entirely. I reached for my phone, prepared to call security if necessary. Before I could, the door slowly opened. Alexandra emerged first, her meticulously styled hair now disheveled, loose strands falling across her flushed face. Her elegant midnight blue gown, which had draped so perfectly earlier, appeared rumpled, as though someone had been grasping the fabric. Immediately behind her stood Vincent Hargrove, his tie loosened and shirt partially unbuttoned. Unlike Alexandra's expression of panicked dismay, his face remained controlled and calculating, as though assessing potential professional damage. For what felt like an eternity, the three of us stood frozen in that corridor, no one speaking. Words weren't necessary. Reality stood plainly visible. Strangely, I felt oddly detached, experiencing no immediate rage or emotional outburst. With deliberate movements, I unlocked my phone, activated the camera function, and began recording. "This is the annual Westridge Design Group Excellence Awards ceremony," I stated with unnervingly calm precision. "Here stand my wife Alexandra and my director, Vincent Hargrove. I've just discovered them together in the private restroom." Vincent visibly tensed. Alexandra gasped, stepping toward me with outstretched hands, her voice breaking. "Daniel, please." I raised my hand, silencing her attempted explanation. I had absolutely no interest in justifications or excuses. I continued recording for several more seconds, documenting as their carefully constructed deception collapsed completely. Then, without another word, I stopped the recording and walked away. I offered no final statements to either of them. There remained nothing to discuss, nothing salvageable. The promotion, the recognition, none of it held importance anymore. I left Alexandra behind and drove alone through rain-slicked Seattle streets. Throughout the drive home, my phone repeatedly signaled incoming communications on the passenger seat. Text messages, missed calls, more texts. I ignored every attempt at contact. I had no desire to hear her voice or read her words. Approximately 90 minutes later, our front door opened. Alexandra entered, her face streaked with tears, her makeup completely ruined. She appeared to have been crying continuously throughout her journey home, but I felt utterly unmoved by her distress. She stood in our entryway silently for several moments, searching my expression for any indication that reconciliation might remain possible. "Daniel, I raised my hand, cutting off her words before she could continue. "Don't." That single syllable contained everything I needed to express. I had absolutely no interest in explanations or expressions of remorse. The moment I discovered their betrayal, everything had fundamentally changed. The remainder of that night passed in complete silence. No confrontations, no accusations, just the deafening absence of communication. I sat in our living room staring at nothing particular, while Alexandra hovered uncertainly nearby, her body language pleading for engagement. I couldn't bring myself to speak, and I refused to listen. By the time I retreated to our guest bedroom, my phone had accumulated dozens of notifications. Colleagues had somehow learned about the incident, everyone curious about what had transpired and why I had departed abruptly. I ignored all inquiries. I had no interest in becoming the subject of office gossip or enduring conversations that ceased when I entered rooms. I awakened the following morning with absolute clarity regarding my path forward. I knew Alexandra remained somewhere in our home, probably waiting anxiously, hoping that overnight I might have softened, that perhaps something remained worth preserving. Nothing did. I took my time preparing for the day before making my way to our kitchen. I found her sitting at our dining table, hands wrapped around a coffee mug that had clearly gone cold hours earlier. She looked up immediately when I appeared, her eyes reddened and swollen from prolonged crying. "Daniel, please!" Her voice fractured as she spoke, desperate and imploring. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, my expression deliberately neutral. I didn't immediately speak, offering no gesture of sympathy. I hadn't come to provide comfort. I had come to conclude matters definitively. "Our marriage is finished," I stated, my tone calm, resolute, and final. No anger colored my voice, no need remained for heightened emotion or accusations. The damage proved irreparable. Alexandra physically recoiled as though I had struck her. "No, Daniel, please. It was a terrible mistake. I made an awful error in judgment. I acknowledge that, but surely we can work through this together. I love you." I released a short, humorless laugh while shaking my head. "You love me? Was Vincent the only one? Or have there been others?" She didn't answer. She didn't even attempt denial, and that silence provided all the confirmation I required. I exhaled deeply, pushing back my chair as I stood. "You may remain in this house until our divorce finalizes," I said, my tone unwavering. "After that, we're done completely." Tears streamed down her face as she dissolved into uncontrollable sobs, her body trembling from the weight of consequences she had brought upon herself. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone with the aftermath of her betrayal. Information circulates rapidly in professional architectural circles, but a scandal of this magnitude spreads exponentially, initially appearing as subtle whispers, colleagues exchanging knowing glances across drafting tables, and during client meetings. I disregarded these entirely, having no desire to participate in workplace gossip. By Monday morning, Westridge's executive leadership had been informed about the incident at the awards ceremony. Vincent being discovered with a subordinate spouse wasn't merely an embarrassing personal failure. It represented a significant professional ethics violation. Westridge Design Group prided itself on maintaining exemplary standards of integrity and leadership, and Vincent's actions hadn't simply crossed boundaries, they had obliterated them completely. An internal investigation commenced, and as the Human Resources Department delved deeper, they uncovered something entirely unsurprising. Vincent had established a pattern of inappropriate relationships within the organization. Alexandra wasn't his first transgression. He had repeatedly exploited his position to pursue women at Westridge, manipulating professional situations to his advantage. Some relationships appeared consensual, others existed in ethically ambiguous territory disguised as mentorship. The HR department had previously overlooked warning signs, but now they possessed concrete evidence, witness accounts, and a scandal too significant to ignore. Within 5 business days, Vincent was placed on administrative leave. 1 week later, his employment terminated. Just like that, his career and professional reputation lay in ruins. The seemingly untouchable design director who had once determined others' futures had his own future abruptly severed. For my part, I experienced no vindication. I felt no satisfaction from his professional disgrace. By the time Vincent's career imploded, I had emotionally disconnected from the entire situation. Alexandra, however, remained unable to comprehend the magnitude of what had occurred. Even after everything collapsed around her, she continued regarding me with those same desperate, confused expressions, as though she couldn't understand why our life together had disintegrated so completely. Some individuals destroy their lives without ever fully grasping how or why they orchestrated their own downfall. She belonged among them, and that reality no longer constituted my burden to carry. Weeks passed following our separation. My life gradually re-established a semblance of normalcy. My work at Westridge stabilized, though I requested transfer to a different department under new leadership. My daily routine recovered its structure, and for the first time in months, I recognized myself again during morning reflections. Then one evening, my phone illuminated with an incoming notification. A single message from Alexandra. "I miss you tremendously. Could we possibly talk?" I stared at the screen, processing her words without emotional reaction. I read the message once, deleted it permanently, and continued forward with my evening. No response, no closure, no final conversation. She had made her choices, and I had made mine in response. So what would you have done facing similar circumstances? Would you have offered another opportunity? Would you have attempted rebuilding what was broken? Or would you have followed my path, walking away definitively, refusing second chances or explanations? Here's what experience has taught me. Certain betrayals cannot be undone or repaired. Some individuals recognize what they've lost only when it's irretrievably gone. And by that point, you'll have already moved beyond caring about their belated realizations. The fundamental trust forming the foundation of any meaningful relationship, once shattered, leaves only fragments too sharp and numerous to ever reassemble successfully. 5 months after the award ceremony, I received an unexpected opportunity from Horizon Architecture in Denver, a fresh professional beginning in a different city, leading an innovative sustainable design initiative that could potentially transform urban residential development. I accepted without hesitation. Sometimes the most appropriate response to betrayal isn't revenge or sustained anger. It's simply creating a life so fulfilling that the person who wounded you becomes increasingly irrelevant to your continuing story. Regarding Alexandra, I learned through mutual connections that she eventually departed Seattle as well. I remain unaware of her destination, and more importantly, I have no need for that information. Her chapter in my narrative has concluded, the book closed and shelved permanently. Our divorce finalized 2 weeks before my relocation eastward. No dramatic courtroom confrontations occurred. No bitter disputes over assets or property. Just paperwork, signatures, and the official conclusion to a relationship that had effectively ended months earlier in a gallery corridor. Today, 26 months later, I rarely reflect on that night at Cascade View Gallery. When memories occasionally surface, they no longer carry emotional weight, just lessons learned and wisdom acquired. Sometimes losing what you believed secure becomes the only path toward discovering what you truly deserve. If you found value in this personal account and wish to hear similar stories, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications. Share your perspectives in the comment section below. Would your response have differed from mine? Your continued support enables us to bring these authentic life experiences to our audience. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you in our next video.